Shalom, good afternoon from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in the United States of God of Israel, bless America, in New York State in 1981, now celebrating our 42nd year. Today is Tuesday, July 25th, 2023 in the Gregorian calendar, and the seventh day of the fifth Israelite Hebrew month of Av in the Hebrew Israelite calendar year 5783. Tomorrow night begins and continues through Thursday, the fast of the 9th of Av, when we remember the many terrible events in Israelite, Jewish, and world history too. The temples were destroyed, I think, on that day. And Nachum, is this right? In August 1914, World War I was declared. So it's just an awful day for everybody. And the Prophet Zechariah does state that in the future, which hopefully won't be too long from now, the fast days will be turned into feast days for those of us who are still here. And may it happen soon. Okay, welcome to episode 12 of our monthly seminar. Let me read the full title here. Abortion, that's in quotation marks. And then the real name, Moloch, Mass Murder, Child Human Sacrifice Global Industry. And the chairwoman of the research fellowship, the Abortion Research Fellowship, is Mrs. Cecily Routman of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the founder and leader of the Jewish Pro-Life organization. Now, before we begin, let me do my rainmaking bit. Of course, to welcome our guests from London and Oklahoma City, and I'm supposed to remember where, all sorts of places all over the United States and everywhere else. I'll have to, yes, fine. There's so many people, I'll eventually get it. And so please, the rainmaking bit, please support our work. Please support the work of Mrs. Cecily Routman and the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation. You'll find the link below. And we have others in the audience, one of which I know, Nachum Shaw of England. Please support Nachum's work. He publishes, edits, and writes books on Jewish subjects from a very deep spiritual perspective, reflecting a life of experience. And that link will be below. And also, please support yours truly's work to build our Hebrew Bible-based Fifth Israelite Monarchy broadcasting network from Jerusalem, Israel, to honor the God-land Torah and people of Israel and all humanity. Regarding the Fifth Israelite Monarchy, please see the biblical book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 44. Please click on the links below. To our viewers and listeners, an excellent book by Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg. He's a mathematician by training. He's a prolific writer, and it's all good. I only have one of his books. I just keep rereading it, and it's always discovering new things. Awakening the Spark Within, 5 dynamics of leadership that can change the world. It's very homespun, practical, but deep spiritual advice, which I think would be applicable to people of whatever spiritual tradition you are, from a very traditional Israelite Jewish perspective. So now, without further ado, let me hand the mic over to our chair, and I'll put the information in chat.
Thank you, Lowell. Thank you so much for hosting us again this morning. I'm Cecily Routman, founder and president of the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation. Since 2006, we've been saving Jewish lives and healing Jewish hearts by providing much-needed pro-life education to the Jewish community, Jewish-friendly pregnancy care and adoption referrals, and healing after abortion. We're just very privileged and honored to be in your company this morning. So yes, this is the time of mourning for these tragic events in Jewish and world history, and at this time of the year, I always do mention the tragic loss of millions and millions and millions of innocent children in the womb due to legal and illegal abortion, which is, well, it's just a very painful, torturous way of ending the life of another human being. And we have become, many of us, numb to the realities of it as it's been normalized around the globe. Today we are going to open the show with a beautiful short video out of Ireland's pro-life group, Protect Life. They are the most recent country to legalize abortion, and they are losing vast numbers of little Irish babies there. So a very vibrant pro-life community has sprung up in Ireland. And then we're going to listen to Dr. William Lile, pro-life doc, talk about the dangers of the abortion pill, and then another neonatologist physician talking about that it is no longer medically necessary to torture a baby to death to save the mother's life. These are very important concepts, and I'm trying to educate our listenership about, because we need to move away from the archaic, barbaric ideas that have monopolized this narrative for so long. So thank you very much for being here, and when we're done with that, I'll make a few comments and then open up the discussion to our attendees. Thank you for listening to that and watching that little video that shows, yes, that innocent human beings are alive in the womb, no matter how many times we hear from the media that that's not true. Oh, I must say, lol, that the images, of course, now have gotten so clear and so easily understood that it is no longer possible for any person that has any intellectual honesty at all to say that these are blobs of tissue or products of conception or whatever. And also, the way that I continue to do this work day after day after day is to make sure that I am channeling Hashem's vision and, as you said, thoughts, words, and deeds. I certainly do not rely on myself at all to do any of this work, or I would have collapsed long ago. And I also have really wonderful people that are associated with the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation that really do help me on a daily basis to continue the work. Now, I want to introduce this Dr. William Lile, who we met at the Family Leaders Summit 2 weeks ago. And he was a pro-life doc speaking at this large evangelical Christian summit. And I introduced myself. He was so excited to meet me. So it was very, very good. So let me share his short video with you now.
I just finished reading an article about a 26-year-old pregnant woman who is now dead. She found out that she was pregnant with a home pregnancy test, and she was scared, didn't know what to do. She was able to obtain the abortion pills without seeing a physician, without having an ultrasound done. She swallowed the pills, and 3 days later, she was brought into an emergency room unresponsive. The emergency room did their best, but they were not able to resuscitate her, and this 26-year-old pregnant woman died in the emergency room. A post-mortem exam was performed, and they found out, yes, she was 8 weeks pregnant, but the pregnancy was not within the womb. The pregnancy was in her tube. That pregnancy was an ectopic pregnancy. The tube ruptured and bled, and she bled to death. When they did the post-mortem exam, they found over 1 liter of blood in her abdominal cavity. This pregnant woman bled to death. A ruptured ectopic pregnancy is still the #1 pregnancy-related cause of death in the first trimester here in the United States. Approximately 1% of all pregnancies in the United States are an ectopic pregnancy. So when a woman is told, you're going to have some bleeding, cramping, and pain when you take the abortion pill, well, guess what? When she has a rupture in ectopic pregnancy, those symptoms are the exact same. She has bleeding, cramping, and pain. How is she supposed to know the difference? Only an ultrasound will say where the pregnancy is. A pregnancy test only says that there is a pregnancy. I'm against all abortion, but when we have the abortion pill killing women like this, and it's available at CVS, it's going to be available at Walgreens, it's available even mail order, and even in California it's available at the Student Health Center. This is bad medicine, and women will die. We are created in the image of God at the moment of conception, and an abortion is an attack against that image of God. We treat the babies in the womb as patients. We can now do blood transfusions. We can do spina bifida corrective surgery, laser vascular surgery, open heart surgery on these babies. A patient is a person, no matter how small. Abortion is wrong, but abortion by a mail order without even seeing a physician is absolutely taking this to a new level. It is evil. It is not health care. God bless you. Stand up for what is right. Stand up for women's rights. No woman should stand alone. If you have any questions, you can contact me, Dr. Bill Lile, through my website, prolifedoc.org. Have a good day.
Okay, he's just wonderful. And then lastly, let's hear from another member of the American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs, Dr. Kendra Kolb, and she is addressing this idea of that it's never medically necessary to save a woman's life by killing her unborn child. And this is near and dear to my heart these days because of the very loud propaganda coming out of not only the whole abortion industry, but the Jewish pro-abortion lobby demanding that we maintain this exception to have legal abortion to save the life of the mother. But as I said, the whole premise is erroneous now. It is no longer necessary to do that. And so we must speak truth to that lie so that things go in a better trajectory. And now I'll share this video with you.
It is often said that abortion is sometimes medically necessary to protect the life or the health of the mother. This is simply not true. As a neonatologist, I am regularly consulted to advise mothers with high-risk pregnancies, and I routinely care for their babies. I have also personally gone through 2 very difficult pregnancies, each requiring hospitalization. So I have great empathy and respect for all women who are pregnant, especially those with difficult or high-risk pregnancies. What women deserve to know, however, is that even in the most high-risk pregnancies, there is no medical reason why the life of the child must be directly and intentionally ended with an abortion procedure. In situations where the mother's life is truly in jeopardy, her pregnancy must end and the baby must be delivered. These situations occur in cases of mothers who develop dangerously high blood pressure, have decompensating heart disease, life-threatening diabetes, cancer, or a number of other very serious medical conditions. Some babies do need to be delivered before they are able to survive outside of the womb, which occurs around 22 to 24 weeks of life. These situations are considered a preterm delivery and not an abortion. These babies deserve to be treated with respect and compassion, and parents should be given the opportunity to honor their child's life. The fact that every year thousands of abortion procedures are done on babies that are the same gestational age as many of the babies I routinely care for is something that very deeply and profoundly disturbs me as a physician. These babies move, breathe, can cry, hear, and feel pain. The second trimester dilation and evacuation procedure, or D&E, involves dismembering the baby by tearing off his or her arms and legs and crushing their bodies and skulls even while they are still alive. The third trimester induction procedure involves delivering a lethal injection with a large needle into the baby's heart or head. There are also serious safety concerns related to late-term abortions. If a woman's life is imminently in danger, a preterm delivery is a much safer option. An emergency C-section can be completed in less than an hour, while an abortion after 24 weeks, when the most common life-threatening complications occur, takes 2 to 3 days to complete due to the necessary dilation process, in essence delaying treatment and significantly increasing the risk of death and serious disability to the mother. In addition to early delivery as a means of protecting the mother, there are also times when it may be necessary to give a pregnant mother medical treatments which may tragically result in the loss of the baby. However, it is important to understand that these treatments are not abortions. For example, if a pregnant mother has cancer and chooses to undergo chemotherapy, that treatment may result in a miscarriage. However, the treatment given is very different than abortion, as the purpose of the chemotherapy is not to kill the child. Some will also confuse the necessary treatment for an ectopic pregnancy with an abortion. An ectopic pregnancy occurs when a preborn child implants in the mother's fallopian tubes or somewhere outside of the uterus. When a preborn child implants outside of the uterus, it is a hostile environment for the baby in which it cannot survive. And sadly, removing the baby from the fallopian tube or abdominal cavity is necessary, as an ectopic pregnancy will inevitably end in a miscarriage and may threaten the mother's life. These situations are devastating. However, they are not considered abortions. Abortion unnecessarily ends the lives of children and may also result in serious medical and psychological risks to women. Physicians have an ethical duty to deliver expert care for both patients, the mother and the child. A mother's life is always of paramount importance, but abortion is never medically necessary to protect her life or health.
So there you go, straight from the expert. This kind of programming is never seen by pro-abortion advocates, I think because their leadership feeds them all sorts of other information that are lies, first of all. And speaking as a Jewish person, we are taught from an early age to avoid any kind of Gentile programming or for fear that we are going to be converted. And I'm just so grateful that I've been guided to this ministry, or rabbinistry as I call it, and that I've learned the truth, and I do appreciate the opportunity every day to share this message with Jewish and non-Jewish friends and neighbors. Lastly, what I'd like to share before we open up the conversation is that Turning Point USA is having a Young Jewish Leadership Summit in California next month. The Jewish Pro-Life Foundation tabled at the first Young Jewish Leadership Summit that Turning Point USA hosted in Washington, D.C. several years ago. We are not going to California this year. It's a little bit far from Pittsburgh. But they have offered us a reasonably priced sponsorship opportunity. For $500, we can ask them to print out our information, and they will distribute it to the attendees there. They're expecting 100 young Jewish leadership potential folks there, men and women, who can have a great influence on our community and the country eventually. And I think it's very important. When I spoke to the representatives there, they could not deny that though conservative in their approach, these youngsters are taught, as so many Jewish kids are, that abortion is legal in Judaism, and it's even demanded in Jewish law when the mother's life is in danger. So that's a lie. And, of course, Judaism prohibits the killing of any innocent being in the womb or out of the womb. So we're very, very grateful to have the opportunity to get this information out to these youngsters. And then lastly, in September, on September 10th, we're going to offer our Tikvat Rachel healing opportunity for Jewish women and men who suffer after abortion. I'll just show you our Facebook page. Encourage anyone who does suffer after abortion, who is Jewish, to please come and join us. There's no cost involved. There's our flyer. It's completely confidential, very empathic. We don't judge anyone for having made this tragic choice. After all, we are basically railroaded into it by our friends, peers, even our rabbis. And so for those of us who suffer, it is a lovely opportunity to find some healing, and we are having great success with our program. So again, that's Sunday, September 10th. You can visit our Facebook page here, Tikvat Rachel, or our home webpage, and find the tab After Abortion, and contact our co-chair to learn more and register. So now, let's see, we're just about a little more than halfway in our program today, and I would like to first ask Dr. Braverman to unmute and share a little bit about his perspective on the whole medical information about abortion. Dr. Braverman is a physician that I met at the Queens Village Republican Club award ceremony there, where I received the Sanctity of Life Award. And he was hovering about the table of Jews there, and I met him, and he's just been very interested in what we do and wanting to support our work. So he has several very important ideas to share with the group today. So Dr. Braverman.
I was kind of stunned by your opening speaker, is that Lile from Jerusalem, about that leadership points, and that was very powerful. So, and I was stunned again by your beautiful ultrasound. That was my first, and maybe I'll just take the picture away because my hair is such a mess. But I was so stunned when I was a kid in medical school at NYU, when I saw human body parts going through the suction vacuum cleaner. And I said, what the hell, what was that? And probably said, what the hell was that? I was not even about tshuva. I just was like, this is a whole human being. We just sucked through the vacuum cleaner. So that got me interested in it. And then I got into trouble in various medical boards when I said, well, if it isn't human, why don't you dine on it? Like Jonathan Swift said of the Irish, he says, well, why don't you cook us if you don't want to let our kids eat? To the British, why don't you make Irish boys au gratin and Irish kids fried? And I said it as a joke, but people didn't take it as a joke because what you said, it is a type of evil. I want to get a comprehensive solution. I'm amazed that I didn't think of this until recently. Thanks to you, I started to think more about it medically, and maybe it'll be easier for people to listen to me if they see me. But the bottom line is I didn't realize that one of the big problems in this Holocaust is 60, besides the 60 million plus babies, is that fathers were never notified. So there's article after article that boys are having so much trouble. Boys are really 90% likely to be the ones that overdose and die. Boys have more depression. Boys are really having a hard time in the research literature. They're not doing as well in math. Their scores are going lower. They're really suffering from this so-called equality culture, but it's not meeting their needs equally. So one of the things that struck me is the boys, the girls get pregnant, but then the boys never know that they produced a baby. So they have no chance to grow up and to think about their sexuality in a more mature sense. So that struck me that even all these years of following pro-life, that there never was a law notify the father, which is one of the main cultural problems in our whole society. Is the father, everybody's got equal rights but the fathers. And then the other thing that struck me was, since talking to you, was that the immune system views the fetus as foreign, non-self. And the fetus actually releases cells from the mother-father inside its body to let the mother know not to kill it and react to it, so that it sees itself as partially self. And so the immune system, it's a foreigner. So the fetus is actually not the property of the mother. It's not genetically identical to the mother. And this gets back to the whole problem that's been going on in the Bible forever, which is whether it's slavery or whether it's fetal termination or euthanasia. Can we own another human being? And Lincoln's statement was, a house divided cannot stand. The nation will not survive, half slave, half free. And this issue is going to keep going on until there's better laws that you can't kill any human being with consciousness. And obviously the fetus is conscious at least from 8 weeks, 12 weeks. I mean, there's an argument. So I want to thank you for your work. Those are the two things you've stimulated. One is the immune difference between mother and child. Number two, the fact that the father's never notified, and the implications, it goes all the way through society. Half of the marriages end in divorce. I don't know what percentage of pregnancies end in abortion, but basically the marriages are aborted and the fathers are on the outs in most cases. So most of the boys that I see out here in the parks in New York City and talk to them, they have almost no father contact, and they have very low father contact. So the society that lets abortion be part of it is ultimately becomes a father damaged culture. And that's sad. Now, the Torah says Abraham begat Isaac and begat this, begat that. It turns out that in particular with boys, genetically, they all have a Y gene, which is a clone. So we saw in America and its founding, there's so many businesses called father and son, father and son. Everybody's named Ben's son, John's son. They're named father and son all over the place. Biblical names, that's the foundation of the United States. It's son after son after son, father and son, because they're cloned. And the whole selfish generation that thinks it can get away with this kind of behavior, unfortunately, colors everything. So they say 23andMe is what we are genetically, but the X and Y chromosomes don't talk. The mitochondria has another set of chromosomes. Your microbiome has another set. We're all 24 in us. And that's, of course, for those who know some Hebrew, that's Mamadot. What surrounded the temple in Jerusalem was 24 people, and 2 by 2 and a whole priesthood. But the bottom line is you're not a 23andMe. Each person is genetically connected to the whole of his generation. So we're connected through our mother to mitochondria, to our father, the Y gene, to the father, the X chromosome. It goes on and on and on. So Genesis has great truths, and our society doesn't realize that the pro-life message or the pro-death message of abortion, the pro-death message is contaminating marriage, law, science, genetics, how we see everything. So, and if you go back to the Declaration of the United States says nature's God, that profound statement of the scientists of the Enlightenment, like Benjamin Franklin, signed off on that. I think he wrote it even, but it's called Nature's God. We have to realize that science that we do is from God. All right. So thank you, Cecily.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate you being here. Now, I just want to open this up to our panels here. Who would like to share? Please unmute. It's wonderful to hear from all of you, so don't be shy. Ross.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Ross Schrickman. I live in Wyoming. I'm a refugee from Pennsylvania. I've been here 2 years. It's a wonderful community, Casper, Wyoming. What I didn't suspect and never would have imagined is that we now have the only surgical abortion center in Wyoming in Casper. The dog just came in. She's 18. She's got an appointment for her dementia this morning. So anyway, recently I was asked by the pro-life Casper community to become their leader. A longtime member of the group that's been doing this for 30 years, he's getting burned out. He says it's about time for him to meet his maker, even though he's not sick. In fact, on cold days, he used to send me home with the prayer vigils because it was like 10 below out here and windy. And he'd say, oh, if you get cold, go home. Very nice gentleman, working very closely. We have an organization called Wellspring. They're based in Washington, D.C. If you look up their website, their whole purpose is to bring abortions to what they call red states or abortion deserts. So we've been protesting. We presented a petition to our city council and our county commissioners with 300 signatures, and 70 people showed up. But the city and the county said they can't do anything about it. They don't even regulate it. They told us to go to the state. The state told us to go to the city. So we're working with an organization called Reprotection. They do research and file claims against violations of local laws. We're doing a 40 Days for Life coming up here. We have a pastor's conference August 29th. And Cecily, I think I mentioned that to you. And if you can come, you could be my guest and visit Casper Mountain and see the trails of the pioneers and all the wonderful stuff here. But we've invited ministers from about 40 congregations, Catholic, Protestant, and we have one Jewish congregation here, which I am also the secretary of the board there. I mean, I get really involved here. It's not what I thought I was going to be. I thought I'd be doing my writing. I'm an author and screenwriter and producer of a movie about my mom who died of Alzheimer's called My $1 Million Mom. So a lot busier than I thought. Working on a letter to the governor this morning. we're out there. Sadly, there was a young woman who has pleaded guilty to setting a fire at the abortion clinic last year. And she actually hurt our cause because they keep saying that we're promoting violence, and the opposite. We had a young woman last week stand in front of each of our prayer people, and she coughed at us and spit on the ground in front of us. We've been in touch with the police about that. But the community here is pretty much pro-life. I mean, some people are, I would call them light pro-life. The local officials don't have the courage to even pass a resolution, a non-binding resolution. They say that they have to stay in their lane. But my view is, if you're in your lane driving down the highway and you see somebody being killed on the side of the road, would you stop? Because I would. But they want to stay in their lane. We do have pro-life laws that were passed this session in the legislature. One's called Life is a Human Right, and the other one is the first state to pass a chemical abortion ban. But a district judge put a hold on it, and the hold allows these organizations to operate. And as the video had showed, there's an organization, I forget the name right now, but they're doing mail order abortion pills. Now, this facility here is not only doing surgical abortions. We had last Friday, 2 women came out with brown bags and got in their cars. One was from South Dakota. From South Dakota and Nebraska have pro-life laws that their judges have approved. So we're getting people from South Dakota, Nebraska, and Montana. The doctors, I think, we're pretty sure are brought in from Colorado. They fly in the airport. The staff of the abortion center picks them up and drives them to the back. It's a back alley abortion center, by the way. We stand in the alley, and their parking lot is behind the building. They have security. It's like an armed fortress there with all kinds of signs. You can't get in unless the guard comes out, and they have escorts standing there. We stand away from it, but it's been very, very difficult. We did help 3 homeless people last week, and one was a young lady that had been beaten up by her boyfriend. There's a satellite office for our pregnancy resource center a block and a half away. And I walked her down there, and the staff took her in and wanted to see, how they could help her. We have a homeless problem here now. We're a very kind community, and we're being chosen by people from the outside. We're also being concerned about human trafficking. If anybody's seen the movie Sound of Freedom, there is, we suspect underage abused children are being brought here that are become pregnant either through abuse or rape. But we can't know because nobody's inspecting this place. And we're supposed to have a pro-life governor. So anyway, that's about it.
Thank you, Ross. Always good to hear what's going on in Casper. I just wish that the demand side of the abortion business wasn't so great. I think if we had less of a demand, we'd have less of a supply. Anyone else? Would anyone else like to share? Just please unmute.
Cecily, this is Nachum from London. I don't know what the law is in the States, but in the UK, it is so easy to get an abortion that if a doctor and she says that giving birth seriously affect her mental well-being, the doctor will automatically refer her for an abortion, even if he knows that the excuse is most probably specious. And it's that easy. I wonder whether, is it the same in the States? Is it that easy to get a referral for an abortion?
Most places, yes, it is. But since Roe v. Wade was overturned, some states have made it much more difficult. They banned abortions from conception or from 6 weeks. They're called these heartbeat bills. So, yes, but the other states, the states that are very abortion friendly, have made it even easier. So they've made abortion up to the birth date of the baby legal and very accessible. And I don't know in England how many abortions are now done with the chemical abortion pill, but it's well into the 55% now here. And so that's made it very easy. In England, I thought that they had limits, though, on gestational ages for abortion in England.
Yes. I think it's still quite high. I think it's up to 26 weeks, which is very high, isn't it? They're talking about reducing it. There is a campaign to try and reduce it at least.
What we don't see as pro-life activists is the extreme amount of money that goes into propaganda and pushing legislators, or, in your case, the parliament or whatever, to continue increasing access to abortion. There's just a lot of money that goes into it. Now, especially in America, where usually abortion-friendly presidents activated, where there's a lot of our money that goes to abortion or reproductive health in foreign countries. And then when we have a more conservative president, they stop that. It's called the Mexico policy. So yes, I'm sure there's a lot of money flowing into England now to promote greater abortion access. So this is what our side doesn't see. We're always fighting this Goliath of money. Everybody's profiting. Plus, there's a great added value industry in late-term abortion baby parts for research. And that's one of the reasons why the gestational ages are being extended all the time, because the larger the baby, the more developed the baby is, the more expensive their body parts are.
I believe that I'm sure you agree that if a woman has an abortion, for whatever reason, she made the decision, it's done, it can ruin her life psychologically. And I really would like to know, you mentioned it in this upcoming conference, how, I would say that anybody who's had an abortion would need very extensive therapy or understanding to be able to forgive herself deep down. I have a relative who's had a couple of abortions, and I'm not even sure if she's conscious about what damage it has done to her. So could you address that point?
Women and men actually suffer from stress after abortion. And because of being told that it's a choice, it's legal, it's health care, many women are not conscious of the damage that's been done to them, or even to the baby, really.
They can come in 15 years later and asking to get pregnant, and they're 45 and 46, and we can't get them pregnant. They can't get pregnant. No, they pay for IVF. So, Cecily, all of psychiatry is against this post-abortion syndrome. They publish constantly that it's no different, and they've made up their mind they're not touching the abortion industry. So I don't know if that helps you. But to do a study on a human being to see how much abortion hurts them, sometimes it needs 20 years to study that. And no one wants to pay for 20-year studies. They'll pay for the equivalent of 20-year studies in Drosophila and worms, but they won't pay for a 20-year study on the impact of women for 25 years on abortion. So I don't know if you're getting that message, but almost all of psychiatry is against this message.
Yes, well, Dr. Braverman, yes, the establishment medical community doesn't touch it, but there has been now many years of research done by a place called the Elliott Institute. They've been doing research for many years. The Catholic Church has a very effective healing program. They've had it for years called Rachel's Vineyard for women, Catholic women. And then there's another one called Rachel's Hope. And when we started the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation, we started Tikvat Rachel, because we wanted to offer abortion healing to Jewish women and men who suffer. And it's a teshuva-based program. So when people talk about forgiveness and salvation and healing from abortion trauma, we offer them a teshuva-based Jewish program. And it is wonderful. We have it about 4 times a year in a private Zoom room.
There's a way that looks right for a man, is a scripture of the Proverbs of Solomon, a way that looks right and it leads to death. The abortion looks right for a lot of women, and they think they're going to save money, or they're going to get a better relationship with another man, and yet it leads to a very psychiatrically destructive process throughout society.
Well, I can just tell you that after having done this for many years, I can always tell when I'm in the presence of a post-abortive woman or man. There's a certain feeling I get. It's very disturbing. For Jewish women and men, it is particularly difficult because we are taught that we are being virtuous when we do this, and that we are being theologically correct when we do this, and we are supported by our peers when we do this. It really is a psychological dilemma.
Well, you're going to have to get the Yeshiva University to help you.
Dr. Braverman, just 1 minute. For Orthodox women who choose to have abortions because they've received a heder, an authorization from a rabbi, they suffer terribly, but their rabbi doesn't know about healing. So they're left in grief, and their whole family suffers because of it. And just one moment about Yeshiva University, believe you me, I have reached out to them. I have no impact on Yeshiva University. They are very much interested in their donations and maintaining their donor roles from establishment Orthodox Jews, and they are not interested in this issue at all.
Cecily, can I just ask one further question? Are you producing any material or video or something, or do you know of any that is directed at young girls, at young teenagers, that would possibly so they can affect their opinion making and bring home the truths of what you present, specifically targeted to an early age? Because I think so many young girls, they find themselves at a very young age, and they've found themselves, they got into trouble, they become pregnant, and they rush to get an abortion. Is there anything directed specifically at them?
There's so much information on the internet just targeting young abortion-minded women. If you email me at Cecily at JewishProLifeFoundation.org, I will definitely send you links to all of those.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I think we're getting short on time. Is there anybody else that would like to share? Ira has said they're all compromised. Academic establishments are dangerous. Do you want to unmute and just share a minute, Ira?
Yeah, I think this is just part of a larger phenomenon that's been going on for decades. Just if you can even go back to after the Civil War, when the American establishment, scholars, educators, they went over to Prussia and studied Bismarck and Prussian Germany, the Prussians, how they were so successful. And they copied the military model for the school system, and they make schooling compulsory in the United States over a period of several decades. There were riots in cities like Boston and New York, like parents not wanting to forcibly send their kids to public school. And I think like medicine used to be, there's allopathic, and I'm not a doctor, but there's like 2 types of medicine, like naturopathic and allopathic. But there was a big divide. I mean, at one time, most doctors didn't hold according to our current, sort of philosophy of medicine. And, money buys power, and people, get in and take over things. And I just think we have to wake up to the fact that there's forces that are so strong and have a lot of deep pockets, and people are invested in their whole lives, their careers and everything, that this is a much wider issue than just, let's say, these pro-abortion Planned Parenthood people or something like that. I think this is very, very deep and pervasive. And it has ramifications, obviously, for the abortion industry.
Thank you, Ira. Would our friend from Brazil like to unmute?
Hi, I'm Yohanan from Brazil, and I'm following what is happening in Israel.
Bom dia.
Bom dia, thank you.
Como vai?
I'm following what's happening in Israel, and I hear that it's quite easy to get an abortion in Israel. And I'm seeing that the Messianic Jews in the north, in Haifa, in the Tree of Life Ministries, have made an alliance with the secular Jewish organization in the north that is pro-life. And I'm encouraged by this alliance of Christians and Jews and whoever that is working for life. And I think that we're one big family, and I think that God is bringing us together.
We have an Israel pro-life education project that we are launching soon in Israel because we need a Jewish voice there for our unborn children and families that are susceptible to the easy access to abortion in Israel. I've had so many people tell me, don't bother doing it. But then when I've read recently, like you say, that the pro-life education is being done by Messianic Jews, and God bless them for doing it, and that there's now more tension between Jews and Christians there because of the increased Messianic activity there. I can't blame the Messianics or the evangelical Christians for working so diligently in Israel because it's so secular there. They feel compelled, right, to try to save Israel on a spiritual level. So we are almost ready to send some seed money to get our website created there in Israel and get started. And we are about to send Rabbi Lile, the Ashkenazi chief rabbi there, a letter about our intentions. So I agree with you, it's a very big deal. We just hope that we can make an impact there because it is very sad what's going on in Israel in many ways. It's very easy to access abortion there. They've done away with their committee that women used to have to go to see these people to get an authorization for a government-funded abortion, and they've done away with that committee. It used to be that women in Israel had to go to a hospital to get chemical abortion. No longer at all do they need to do that. Just as easily accessible there as anywhere else. And there's no pro-life voice there. There's several good pregnancy care resource centers in Israel, but they don't do pro-life educational work except, of course, when they do fundraising events. There's nothing on the airwaves there except through these evangelical Christian messianics. So we need a voice there, a Jewish voice. So hopefully we'll be able to do that.
Yes, a house divided against itself cannot stand, so we have to join hands together to work for righteousness.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for being here. I hope you come back.
I'm here all the time.
Okay. Okay. Would you like to unmute, Ken? And thank you.
One thing that I keep thinking about is I'm pretty sure my grandparents were, Shalom, were proud Ohio Taft Republicans. And I see so much pushback in my own family and among Jewish liberals, especially in Jewish liberal women. And I keep thinking, what if they, instead of being raised in this culture of the new wave feminism started by Gloria Steinem and Betty Friedan, where the Jewish American, where American Jewry, Jewish Americana, where in the space of maybe half a decade, they all switched. I would think in the 60s, I wasn't around until I was born 2 weeks after the lunar landing. My birthday is a week from today. Where my sense is that within a few years, the Jewish Americana, American Jewry, we switched from nominally pro-life to pro-abortion just because the baby boomers at the time, the young American Jews, were following this American Jewish feminism. And I keep thinking to myself, what if all these young Jews, people much younger than you and me, what if they've been raised in a culture of life? What if their moms had said to them, we need to go to a pregnancy resource center once a month. It's our mitzvah project. We are going to help these women in crisis. We are going to do everything we can because every baby is made in the image of God, and we need to do everything we can to save these Jewish children. What if they've been brought up in that culture instead of the Planned Parenthood culture that we see today from every single American influence? Meaning, sorry if I'm going long here, Cecily. The four pillars of American influence: Hollywood, academia, big media, big tech. Did I miss anybody? I think that's it. So everyone and the Democratic Party is pushing big abortion. And how do we go against that? And I think that it comes from the home, and I'm hopeful that we will have a renewed culture of life with it as the decade continues.
Thank you. You're right. Amen. I have some hope for that only because the era of these ultrasounds can stimulate a young person's thinking. And maybe this is a good time to reject our parents' philosophy around this issue. Dawn?
I don't know, this is kind of off topic in a way, but recently I came across George Kennan's February 1946 long telegram. Are you familiar with that at all? He was a U.S. State Department diplomat in Moscow. This was before the Cold War.
I got to meet him, and he is amazing, and it's the most important commentary on Moscow as a cancer, communism as a cancer, contain it like you do with a disease. So thank you for bringing him up, but he's a great hero of mine and hopefully others.
And it's interesting, the things he points out in there about the communist agenda, Marxist, Leninist, whatever you're going to call it. The Soviet Union is gone, sort of. Putin, anyway. But some of the points that he makes in there, I think are still quite valid. And how to learn from that without falling into, I guess, the left is, Red Scare, McCarthyism, the 50s, you want the 50s back again. How to benefit from that and use it in fight. Really, we're in a multi-front war. Sorry about the cat here. She has to get in her comments too. But how to benefit from that in this really multi-front war that is, I think, largely Marxist inspired.
People forget that the Soviet Union legalized abortion in 1923. It was part of their platform. For a brief while, they stopped it because they saw some demographic issues, and then they started it again. And Putin is now trying to introduce family-friendly policy into Russia. It's very hard to reverse the trends, though. And as Dr. Braverman mentioned earlier, there's so much physiological damage to women after all these multiple abortions that when they do want to try to get pregnant, it doesn't work. And then when all those Jewish immigrants went to Israel from Russia, they brought their abortion policy with them. That's one of the reasons the abortion policy in Israel is so radical.
The stupidity of a country that has a less than replacement rate birth rate, getting into a war with very high casualty rates, stupid. Both of the countries, Ukraine also is below replacement rate. Yeah. I don't know what their abortion policy is over there. But.
When the Ukraine-Russian war broke out, I sent out a newsletter about the abortion policy in Ukraine. And it's very high. They have a lot of babies die there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find it quote, blows my mind, I guess you'd say, that Jews after the Shoah favor abortion? What?
And their mindset is that they reject any government imposition of limits on abortion because government imposition is fascist or Nazism. It's just the way we're taught to think. I always say you have to question everything you think and everything you believe because you have to know where it's been sourced. And then you have to, through Torah-based study and one's own relationship with Hashem, through your God-given conscience, you have to explore and investigate what we think and where these ideas come from, and then become a person with integrity and an independent thinker. It's very difficult, especially in this age of social media where the messaging is just accentuated constantly. And people are so spiritually empty that they're dependent on their peer groups, whatever group they identify with. So it's very hard to break out of that. Dave, would you like to unmute?
Hi, everybody. There have been like so many comments that have touched on something that has occurred to me during this meeting. The way we think, the resistance of the culture to the messaging. In marketing, this is a common problem. When the market is not receptive to your messaging, what do you do? Okay, how do you overcome this resistance? Well, there's a strategy in marketing called repositioning, where instead of just bombarding your message, what you try to do is reposition the competition. And the thought that occurs to me is that the issue that we're having the most difficulty with is personhood. And maybe that's an issue that you know, it takes a really deft, skilled approach to kind of attack this and build up the image of a baby having personhood. Now in Judaism, this is a little morbid, but we have a chevra kadisha. I don't know if everybody knows that we have a custom of a group of people in every city who help bury the dead. They're not part of the funeral home. They're actually not part of the rabbinate, but I don't know if people are familiar with the chevra kadisha. They prepare the body for burial. They dress the body.
As a doctor, I did it. So thank you for bringing it up. And it also woke me up. I could sit there and bury a patient in the hospital, but only when I went to do Hevra Kadisha did I say, oh, that's really what death is like. So and by the way, it's in the book, book of Acts. Jews have been doing it for thousands of years, and it wakes you up to death. Thank you. And it's a big problem. Right. That's another disease of America, is that people die in hospitals and the teenagers never know life or death. So why not get high, eat, drink, and be high and merry?
Thank you. What I was, you helped me get there, but we have a disconnect with an aborted baby. And this is, connected to personhood. We don't treat the aborted baby as if it was a person, but it really is. As a matter of fact, in Jewish law, if a person even has, let's say, God forbid, an amputation, okay, of, whatever, of a limb or a bone, that amputated part of their body needs to be buried. There is a tradition that even though it's not living, it's been amputated and it's dead, and the person is living, that actual part of the person. Now they're claiming the pro-abortion people or the pro-choice people are claiming that the baby is part of their body. Yet in Judaism, we have not kind of elevated the personhood of the baby to the point that maybe we should consider, even when there's an abortion, to somehow intervene and have the remains buried. This is messianic, that when there's the revival of the dead, then this somehow is related to burying and having it, not just putting it in a dump or wherever they do with the medical waste. But anyway, maybe the personhood of the the preborn babies can be elevated to the point that they're given some more respect. And that might help with the messaging and the approach and the ability to reach some of the I guess pro-choice culture. That was the thought.
Yes, thank you, Dave. There are some laws in some states now that have made a law that the remains have to be buried. The woman actually signs a form that has the baby has to be buried, or instead of just incinerated. These are, as you say, ways to try to redefine the baby as a baby. And I would say, just my unscholarly opinion, that Judaism has diminished the understanding of what a preborn baby is. It was originally elevated. The first religion sanctifying human life from conception, the unborn human being, was elevated, but it's through the cultural rot of so much Jewish culture and lack of education beyond a very narrow halachic interpretation in yeshiva that we've actually diminished the understanding of what the preborn baby is. So that's why we say the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation, we're making the original pro-life religion pro-life again. Okay, now one last person here that hasn't shared is our latecomer, Thomas. Would you like to unmute to introduce yourself?
Okay, I don't know if I belong here on this site. I just, what shall I say? How shall I open this? I am pro-life. I'm Roman Catholic. I was a priest for 20 years. And during that time, I discovered that my grandparents were Jewish and that they survived the war in Berlin. And the reason why they survived is because my grandmother converted to Judaism from Catholicism, and her blood was considered Aryan blood. And they were both registered at the Jewish synagogue. But when the Nazis looked at them, they saw her Aryan blood only. They didn't recognize her conversion. And for the most of the war, the Aryan blood protected Jewish blood in a marriage. And when they did come and round them up, the women protested and Hitler's elite backed down. And I guess my grandfather was saved. But anyway, that's a long story. So since that time, I've been investigating my family. And as I investigated my family, it led into history. And as it led into history, it led into the Catholic Church. And as it led into the Catholic Church, I started really, really plowing into it. I have a 1,000-page book that I just wrote. It's a little disjointed, so I'm writing another one. But it does come down to the fact, for me, that the culture. So when the Catholic Church was doing all its repentance and we're sorry and you know what happened and that we are part of it through history, which is very good. I think that they're coming around. I think that so I got into this and I realized that it's such a long narrative. Like at the bottom of this is you could look at it in a pro-life way. And how do I see that? Most people in the world, most Catholics do not know that throughout history, the woman was seen as kind of she supplied the blood and she supplied the nurturing force, but it was all up to the man. He was the driving. And the embryological theories were such. So really, in a scientific way, they didn't know when ensoulment happened. They really didn't know. And the only way they could kind of get their handle on it was through Aristotle, who postulated 3 souls. And if I'm rambling on and you guys want to stop me, you better, because I'll be here all day. So the whole idea that a person had three souls. They had an animal soul, a vegetable soul, an animal soul, and then he or she became a human soul. And that didn't happen, according to Aristotle, till such and such a time. And in order to be a human being, you had to have a soul. Okay? So when the church came out on a legal precedence, because Christianity became a religion overnight, like the state religion overnight, in law, they had to define who a human being was and what a human being was. So they took Aristotle's theory of delayed animation and applied that in law. And they took it from the Septuagint, the Old Testament, which the Jews threw out, rightly so. But anyway, so what I'm getting at here is that throughout time, they always said that abortion was wrong. They always said it was wrong. They always said it was wrong. But it wasn't murder until the fetus was imparted with a rational soul. So all the great scholars, all the great universities worked on this through the centuries. And then in 1827, they discovered the ovum, the human ovum, and everything was turned upside down, the whole thing. And it was denied too by liberalism scholarship, and it was denied. So I guess what happened is that's when the church defined its dogma that ensoulment begins at the time of conception, and all hell broke loose on it. And I see that as partly precipitating the Second World War on another level. There were many, many dimensions, but this is an unnamed dimension that is part of the Catholic narrative. So I don't even think Catholics realize this, but I don't know. I'll stop there.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. That's very complicated, the history. I can't pretend to know all of it, but
that's right.
But I can say that there, unfortunately, is much confusion in Judaism about the time of ensoulment. And again, I think that this confusion comes from assimilation from very early on, and a lack of leadership in the Jewish community, and all of these many different commentaries on it in our ancient books that just confuse people. Dave, are you there?
Okay, Thomas, as a former priest, there's a Jewish tradition about ensoulment. I'm just curious if the Catholic Church has ever, let's say, considered this tradition. We have a tradition in Judaism that 40 days before conception, there's an announcement made in heaven that the soul of so-and-so will be joined, we're talking about marriage, with the soul of so-and-so. Has that tradition ever entered into any of the Catholic discussions?
In a way, in another parallel way, there have been, because in order for St. Augustine to come to his dogma or doctrine of original sin, he needed a definition of soul. So he looked around and he saw different ideas of soul. When did the soul inhabit the body? And for example, if the soul inhabited the body at a certain time, then you'd have a cruel God why would a cruel God impart a soul in a body that wasn't perfect or anything like that? So Augustine looked around and he settled on the whole idea about the imparting of the soul. Now, not like a month before, like you stated. That would be considered, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, in the Jewish tradition, a midrash, like you're trying to, and it's a very good midrash. But I think Augustine was like a story, and I think Augustine was more interested in the science of his day. So he looked around and so according to a kind of a scientific definition of ensoulment, he had to look around at the different theories, and he settled on Aristotle, as the church did, but Aristotle said it was such and such time after conception. And Augustine said, no, I think it's much more closer, but I don't know. We don't know enough. We don't know enough. So the church was very honest. Throughout history, they condemned it on a legal basis pretty well if the fetus wasn't sold. But on another level, they said, we don't know. And then in 1827, the frog's eggs, fertilization, the human embryo, we know now. Therefore, ensoulment happens at conception. So to answer your question, no, I've never heard of that accounting that before, although some things go on, like the soul was imparted at the time of Adam, some would say. And the soul was imparted at the same time as the embryo was fertilized or whatever, but the egg was fertilized, but never, not what you just stated. No, too long of an answer. But anyway.
Thank you. There's just one more little thing, quick, related to Jewish tradition that relates to personhood and this ensoulment concept. In the ancient Jewish tradition, the soul has 5 parts. Okay, nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida. Not important. What we consider ensoulment starts with the nefesh, which is the animal soul, and it proceeds to the ruach, which is a spiritual soul, and then the neshama, which we talk about the neshama a lot. But there are 2 other parts that, for most people, virtually all people, the highest 2 parts, the chaya and yechida, if you want to use a word, hover around the person. They don't actually enter the person. In Jewish tradition, there was only one human being that ever had all 5 parts of their soul in their body with them. Everybody else, if you're a righteous person, you might have 4 parts. And if you're this one person, you had all 5 parts of the soul. That one person was Moses. This whole idea of ensoulment and personhood needs to have a higher level of focus. It would be nice for the rabbis to come out and be a little more definitive about what Jewish beliefs are about, and there's still confusion about this 40 days and it's such a complicated area. But even if it's 40 days, if a conception after 40 days has a concept of ensoulment, then abortion should not be permitted after 40 days. I would say it's from conception, but that's not a person's opinion. But they've not defined this thing about personhood and ensoulment well enough, and it's confusing everybody.
Can I just say something on more of a contemporary setting? Like 700 million Catholics in the world. Of course, there's, half-baked Catholics and Catholics that don't believe anything. But so don't let the numbers impress you too much. But they're bound in conscience to believe that ensoulment begins at the time of conception. So they say it doesn't. Then you say, well, you're not Catholic because that you're bound in conscience. That's the way the church works, and that's a whole nother discussion. But the point is that once ensoulment in 1854 was seen as at the time of conception, after that, especially in the States and that, they don't talk about ensoulment, they talk about personhood. And I guess in Rome, what they say is, you can talk about personhood all you want, but we've dogmatically declared that ensoulment is when you become a human being. So discussion on personhood is really, from their perspective, superfluous. It's just an invention of the modern liberal culture not to engage when human life is human life. It's kind of like a way to now people can disagree with that this way or that way, but that's a modern day differentiation between personhood and ensoulment.
I could say, Thomas, that you belong here.
Okay, so can I come next time to your group? I don't want to dominate because I'm Catholic, part Jewish, 2 Jewish grandparents.
We often have Catholics and Christians come on the show, so you're more than welcome. Just sign up for our newsletter so that you get the registration links and things about us, okay?
Okay, well, thank you for listening. My wife is going to be so happy because she thinks that she's the only one that listens to me. Everybody else thinks I'm nuts. So here we go. Great.
Okay, thank you. Well, I know we probably should quit, but I am a bit compulsive, so I have to say hello to Moshe, who is a bit late today. Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
I will say that Moshe is one of the 3 Jews that ended up in Des Moines, Iowa with us. Thank you very much for being there.
It was fun. It was fun. No, I was glad to be there. I mean, like if the situation permits, I'll do it again.
Okay, very good. We've been invited to Nashville in October for a Samaritan Summit, so I'll talk to you about that.
Yeah, I wish you would. That sounds good. Yeah, being that it's so far out, I can probably plan for that. Yeah, I'll go ahead and make plans for that.
Okay. All righty.
I'm coming through Reno, Nevada right now. I just left Sacramento.
Moshe crisscrosses this grand country of ours.
I do.
When we were on our way from Pennsylvania to Iowa and crossed the Mississippi River, I cried. It is so beautiful. It is so beautiful, this country. Okay, I'm going to finish by saying thank you for being here. Please visit our website, jewishprolifefoundation.org, to learn all about what we do. And if you'd like to help us either by praying for us or sending us a financial donation, that would be great. We have many, many social media accounts, so please visit us on our social media. They're all listed there on our homepage. You can sign up for our email newsletter. Just remember about our healing program on September 10th. And I am going to pass the seminar back to our host, Lowell, to finish up. Thank you, Lowell, very much for the time and opportunity.
On behalf of our panelists from the United States and England, I think some others from Brazil, we want to thank Mrs. Cecily Routman for another illuminating program. This is episode 12 in our monthly abortion, quote unquote, Moloch Mass Murder Child Human Sacrifice Global Industry Research Fellowship Seminars. So I made some comments about the fascinating remarks about the fascinating comments made as we've gone along. So I'll just cross them up. Number one, if a person goes into an emergency room, we don't ask the doctor, what is before you can treat me you're on death's door, please let me know your religious political affiliation, where you live, the doctor's the doctor. It doesn't matter. If we see a mugging, murder, or rape in progress on the street, and we're going to save the person, I don't think the victim will say, excuse me, are you Catholic, Jewish, Methodist, whatever? By the way, are you Republican? That there are certain issues that those questions, they get dealt with later. You're dealing with a matzav churum, an emergency situation like this is. You go to save the murder victim. Afterwards, you can sit down when that's done for discussions about theology, philosophy, and political opinions. That's number one. Number two is the terminology is all screwed up. Pro-life choice means pro-murder. Liberal, I don't know what that word means by the people who use it, or progressive. It doesn't seem to me the people who use it today have anything with being liberal or progressive in the original sense that might have been meant by 100 years ago when there were liberal progressive parties. That's another thing. Secondly is regarding National Socialist Germany, the policy of the Third Reich was depended on who was being discussed. If one was discussing people, the Third Reich, communism was discriminated on class. National Socialist Germany discriminated on race, and I put that in quotation marks because, as I've repeatedly said in all our programs, the Torah has no concept of race. It does have a concept of the families of man. But if for National Socialists, the Übermensch, the Herrenrasse, the master race were Germans, Aryans, I put that in quotation marks. Then you had the Untermenschen, the subhumans, which is pretty much everybody else, people from the Baltic states, Slavs, Africans, everybody else. And then you had the anti-race, the Gegenrasse, that was Jews. That was a totally different category, which is why they had to be exterminated totally. So the policy, if you were German, was not only discouraged, but I'll get to this in a second. If you were a Slav, abortion, fantastic. Kill them off. You save us the trouble. But if you were of German birth, well, let's look at this. In June of 2022, it got worldwide coverage. Germany scraps Nazi-era law that barred doctors' abortion ads. Germany has abolished the Nazi-era law that criminalizes doctors who provide information about abortion procedures. It's called paragraph 219A, which dates back to May 1933, shortly after Adolf Hitler assumed full powers of Nazi Germany, which was it's against the law then in Nazi Germany to provide information on abortions. Why? They wanted mass production of Superman, Ubermensch babies. And that's why Heinrich Himmler established his Lebensborn centers in Bavaria. So they had no problem. Marriage wasn't important to them. Point was baby production. Whether you're married or not, ein Kind für der Führer, have a baby for the Führer. That was encouraged in the German youth groups. All right. So National Socialists were against abortion for Germans, Aryans, quotations for the master race, but very much in favor of them for everyone else. That's another point. Another point is that if you look historically, murder of the very young or the unborn is no big deal. In Greece, you didn't like your baby, just put it on the hillside to die. In Rome, they threw the babies on trash bins, literally. Abortions were all over the place done. They had no problem with that. That's nothing new. And the other remark is about the person who was a priest, that the Gestapo in 1943, there was a vigil of hundreds of German ladies married to Jews outside Gestapo headquarters saying, we don't want you to take our husbands. And they just stood there and the Gestapo backed down. Now, this is a very important point. My own model for resistance to tyranny anywhere I'm going to just read you who he was. His name was Clemens August Graf von Galen, no connection with me as far as I know. Clemens Augustinus Emmanuel Joseph Pius Antonius Hubertus Marie Graf von Galen, that's a long name. He was a German Count Bishop of Munster and Cardinal of the Catholic Church. During World War II, Galen led Catholic protests against Nazi euthanasia and denounced Gestapo lawlessness and the persecution of the church in Germany. He had nothing to say about persecution of Jews. He discussed that later, and he regarded that as a failing. I would just say this, you have to choose, you can't take on everyone all at once. Now, they could have done that for Jews. It's important to remember what happened. This is August 1941. Hitler's winning all the battles, including in Russia. They didn't think Russia would make it through the winter. And this Count von Galen leads national protests all over Germany and Austria against the mass murder of mentally and physically handicapped people, most of whom were not Jews at that point. It was just everybody. And Hitler and the National Socialists had to back down. What's my point? I don't care where you are in America and Israel, you'll lose your job if you don't get that injection, okay? You'll be thrown out of the military. If Count von Galen could lead thousands of Germans and Austrians in rebelling against the euthanasia policy of the National Socialist Third Reich and force them to back down at the height of Hitler's powers, nobody has an excuse not to protest these days anywhere, because none of us face conditions, I would think, as bad as that. Eric Braverman, doctor, got his medical degree at NYU. My father graduated NYU Law Review 1949, and he went home to God on October 16, 2018, aged 98 years young. I don't think, no, I already know this because before he went, I discussed it and said, Daddy, you know, more and more, I started to look into this, why that's a whole nother story. Back in 2011, 2012, I said, you know, more and more students at NYU and Columbia are turning to prostitution to pay off their student loans. Look it up. How I stumbled on that was more like, you know, I want to flatter myself. Gene Hackman and the French Connection, go see the movie, which is based on a true story, where he stumbles on this drug smuggling ring to America for a French billionaire, a millionaire. And it's a true story, apparently. It's a terrific movie. He was a terrific actor. I don't even know if he's still alive. Anyway, I stumbled on this, and my father said the same thing. Here he is. He always liked to be identified as a military man. His question to me, whenever I brought up anything, was, what are you going to do about it? And if there's nothing you're going to do about it, I don't want to hear about it. So that's a whole nother issue. Okay, so there's NYU connection there. I guess that's plenty for now. So we will see you, God willing, in 4 weeks. And again, the former priest isn't here. Yochanan is here. The subject matter is mass murder. So it doesn't matter what a person's religious or political background is. As I've repeatedly stated, my favorite battle rabbis of our Second American Revolution, the men in black, the black regiments, as the British called them, calling for rebellion against Pharaoh in the 1760s and 50s. And the Crown was saying, they're telling their people to revolt. What are we going to do? Arrest or shoot all the ministers? The men in black today, the battle rabbis of our Second American Revolution on this issue, are Catholic priests, led by Father Frank Pavone. And if he's Sicilian, he probably has Jews in the family, because you go back 2,000. Once you go south from Rome, there's more and more Jewish DNA. By the time you get to Sicily and Sardinia, the whole place is a yeshiva. So that's one of my favorite battle rabbis of our Second American Revolution. It doesn't matter that like who mentioned, 2 million mostly Jewish babies mass murdered in the land of Israel since 1948. What someone said, well, they were Jewish communists. That's true also. But Tel Shamir Hospital, which is Chaim Sheba, he was a eugenicist who studied with German National Socialist eugenicists. It's not just coming from communist people who came from the Soviet Union. That's part of it. But there's another part coming from the other side of the Oder-Neisse line, which was very happy to participate in the extermination of Jewish babies, preferably Mizrahim, not Ashkenazim. That's another hot potato we have to discuss another time. So when you're dealing with this, it doesn't matter what your political and religious background is. We have to do what we can do: save the mothers, save the babies. The Matzav Harum. Okay, I've said enough. Please support Cecily Routman and the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation. You'll see the link below. And please, Nachum is still here, right? So you can support his work with publishing. See the link below. And please support yours truly's work to build our Hebrew Bible-based Fifth Israelite Monarchy broadcasting network from Jerusalem, Israel, to honor the God-land Torah and people of Israel and all humanity. Please click on the link below. Regarding the Fifth Israelite Monarchy, please see the biblical book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 44. So, shalom from Pittsburgh, London, Victoria do Palmar in Brazil, Chicago, Casper, Wyoming, and Arizona, a lot of places. We will see you in a few weeks, God willing.